Neither Russia nor China have announced any such plans to occupy Greenland. There is no factual information that could support such accusations. That's the first point. We cannot but mark the fact that the current tensions around the autonomous Danish region, Greenland, vividly show the deficiency of the so-called rules-based world order. Because you can see with the naked eye, and now it's clear to everyone, the lameness of the years-long strategy of Copenhagen to unconditionally submit to its ally the USA. Now, after the publication of the National Security Strategy of the United States, we see that part of the territory of the Danish kingdom located in the Western Hemisphere is listed by the USA in the self-proclaimed Washington Zone of Interest. The myth that has been promoted by Denmark and other NATO and EU countries for many years of some form of Russian threat looks especially doubtful. Because initially even this myth was used by Washington to justify its claims on Greenland. But it's over. Now we suddenly find out that Greenland is just a natural sphere of influence for the USA. This is stated in the recently published national strategy. We stand in solidarity with China's position on the unacceptability of references to certain activity of Russia and China around Greenland as a reason for the current escalation. Before they accuse others of emerging rifts between them, NATO and EU bureaucrats should first acknowledge their own responsibility for deep and quick erosion of global security and global legal framework. It is important to understand that any attempts to ignore Russian interests in the Arctic, especially in the security sphere, won't remain unanswered and will have long-lasting consequences. Our country will further firmly stand its ground in the region in order to maintain its social and economic development, preserving nature, cultural heritage, and traditional way of living of the indigenous people. We will keep on our course on strengthening of the national sovereignty in the Arctic, primarily in defense and infrastructure of the North Sea route. On January 6th in Paris, on the so-called Coalition of the Willing meeting sidelines British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, together with the French President and the head of the Kiev regime signed a declaration of intent, outlining plans to deploy certain multinational forces in Ukraine, essentially Western occupation troops. This was supposed, as stated, to guarantee future peace agreements. But who would believe that? We are well aware of the unacceptability of such a scenario for Russia. The British are using it as another tool to undermine the peace process involving the United States and to continue hostilities until the last Ukrainian. We would like to warn that all attempts to implement this criminal plan involving the so-called Coalition of the Willing would place full responsibility for the lives of British nationals on London. Our position remains unchanged and it is well known. Any foreign contingents in Ukraine will be regarded as legitimate targets for the Russian armed forces. The British component will be no exception. On January 9th, the UK Defence Secretary John Healey paid a lightning visit to Kiev. He did so to discuss concrete aspects of military, political and technical support for the Kiev regime by London in 2026. In part, there is a plan to launch in January the production of Ukrainian Octopus interceptor drones in England. The projected monthly output is set at 1,000 pieces. John Healey also announced the start of development in Britain of the Nightfall ballistic missile with the aim of boosting the firepower of the Ukrainian armed forces. As you see, this is another step not in a peaceful direction. Some 18 million British pounds is allocated to develop a test sample within a year.